Good afternoon. It is Monday, February 28th, 2022. It is 3:05 p.m. and this is Senate Education, Finance, and Policy Committee is now come to order. Members, today, we do have a quorum for the record. We will not have any votes today, however. So members, today we're going to continue our efforts to learn about literacy. We know about literacy in this state and how important it is for our kids, especially by third grade. But we're going to continue today to kind of dig into why we're at the point we're at and how we can find solutions, more solutions to get out of this predicament. And we have, today it's staff and director from PELSB will be joining us. Before we start with them, we're going to start with Ms. Jill Seth, and she is going to remind us again with some of the reading scores for the students in this state. So Ms. Jill Seth, you're with us.
Hi, thank you, Sheriff Chamberlain and committee members. Yep, I'm just going to share my screen here. Is that sharing correctly?
We have you, yep.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm just going to review two slides that I showed a couple weeks ago. The first slide here shows Minnesota third grade reading scores from the spring of 2014 until the spring of 2021. As a reminder, the World's Best Workforce was implemented by the legislature back in 2013. And then the NCAA tests were not administered in the spring of 2021 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then asterisks along the horizontal axis show a decline from one year to the next. So you can see in the spring of 2014, 58% of third grade readers were meeting or exceeding standards. And it went up a little bit the next year and then dropped almost every year until we had a larger drop from 2019 to 2021, 7 percentage points for those 2 years. And then this next slide shows the national assessment of educational progress reading scores. So this is a test done across the nation, but this slide specifically is for Minnesota. The test is administered every 2 years. So I show from 2013 to the latest data available, 2019. And the average scale score in the middle of both tables. So the left table is for fourth graders, the right table is for eighth graders. That average scale score runs between 0 and 500, with 299 or above being considered proficient by NAEP standards. However, this does not align with state or local standards. So you can see that from 2013 to 2019, the average score went down for fourth grade about 5 points, and analysts who use NAEP often use 10 points as a back of the envelope way to estimate one grade level. So for fourth grade, it was about half a grade level. And then on the right table here there, it dropped from 271 in 2013 to 264, or 7 points, which is a little over half a grade level. And then the percent proficient based off of NAEP standards for fourth grade and eighth grade are on the right side of both tables. And you can see that fourth grade dropped 3 percentage points between the 6 years, whereas the eighth graders dropped 7 percentage points from the 2013 to 2019 school year. And I think that is it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jill Seth. So I'm going to start this off, and then we'll ask Mr. Luizzi to come up to the table. So we're all painfully aware of the depressing state of our literacy scores for the children in the schools in this state. And as Ms. Jill Seth demonstrated, reinforces that again. What's even more difficult and painful is the students of color are, of course, worse off than that, which is really, really a criminal thing. But nonetheless, we are here to try to find solutions to this problem so we can get out of it and move forward. I'm going to thank PELSB for showing up today to answer some questions for us to help guide us to some solutions. So a little background, I think, is helpful here before we move on. is Ms. Joseph has already given us a little briefing, so the question is, how did we get here? Why is it that way? Why are we declining? And I know everybody has a particular position on that, but this shouldn't be partisan. It should just be pure fact, science, and data, and that's what we're trying to get at here. Parents and others, myself included, have worked on this problem for several years. Last year, we should be happy and proud that we finally made a significant step forward. There have been smaller steps in the past, definition of reading and dyslexia and statute, and some other things. But last year, we funded, and the governor signed, a proposal to fund the LETTERS program for $3 million. So what became interesting was during the process in the last many years, when teachers talking to educators, they said they had never, after seeing LETTERS, they said they had never received the science of reading in their college prep courses. And there's a definition for it, but essentially, most people in here understand what that is, but I'll just read the 5 high points, the 5 components of science of reading: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Phonemics, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. So what became disturbing was the teachers and educators said they had never received, for example, the LETTERS training, which is science of reading. So, of course, that raises some questions and concerns, but as odd as that is, there was more to it than that. So recently we met with the superintendent, and we've been meeting with him, superintendents over the years, and he said one of the issues was he discovered some of his teachers in the elementary ed did not have the ability to teach reading based on the science of reading. So we said, well, odd again, but we looked a little bit more, and sure enough, our staff and people came up and said, well, here's some statutes. And I'm going to just point those out real quickly here. For people here maybe streaming or listening, there are several statutes. I'm not going to bore with the details, but 122A 092, which refers to 122A.06. There's 122A 185, different subdivisions and paragraphs, of course. And 122A 187, that's 4. I don't expect anybody to remember that exactly. But those statutes, members, and anybody listening, say that those teachers should have received our reading, our understanding of this was that those statutes says that those teachers were supposed to get SOR, science of reading, in their college prep. Say that again. The statutes clearly laid out that those teachers in their college prep should have received SORs. Now we know they haven't because they told us, and they had great success after they took some of these other professional development classes. Not only that, so we have the superintendent telling us this stuff. We have the teachers' own statements. We have statutes, and we have this. Many people may be familiar with the National Council on Teacher Quality, NCTQ. This is hard to read, folks. NCTQ finds considerable evidence underscored and highlighted theirs that nearly 3/4, 74% of all teacher preparation programs fail to explicitly cover all 5 components of scientifically based reading instruction. I'll read that again. NCTQ finds considerable evidence that nearly 3/4, 74% of all teacher preparation programs fail to explicitly cover all 5 components of scientifically based reading instruction. Minnesota should exercise its leverage in the program approval process to ensure that coursework required of aspiring elementary teachers is appropriately focused on the science of reading. So members, and anybody listening, that's what we're here to try to figure out. Those statutes I referenced clearly state certain things, and we want to get a better understanding of that. That's why we've asked PELSB here to help us understand it. So we have teachers, we have statutes, we have the national organization that studies this stuff. And we need a few answers now. The other day, last week, I think I might have is Senator Duckworth had asked a question. It kind of prompted this as well. I believe the question was, if statute is called for scientifically based reading instruction, this quote from Senator Duckworth, how is it that they say they've not gotten it? And I do have Mr. Luizi's quote here, but I'll leave it at that. Well, I'll remind Mr. Luizi what the quote was. If we have this right, I believe we listen to the tape. Mr. Luizi can correct it when he's up here if you'd like. Quote, happy to address the question. I believe the question would be better posed to MACTE, our higher education organizations. We do review the scientifically based reading programming as part of the renewal process, but each one uses something different. And I think question them and see whether letters training is appropriate, or even to dig deeper into a candidate that have so much work, maybe not able to highlight the scientifically based reading piece. So I'll close my opening statement and comments with that. Mr. Luizi, you're welcome to come up. After we have our questions with Superintendent, with Mr. Luizi, some MACTE people can come up as well. I'll make clear we're not here to discuss the science of reading. It's well established. We know what the science of reading is. We know what that is, so we don't need to discuss that. What we're not clear on is statute says one thing, but it seems something else is happening here. So, Mr. Luizi, why don't you introduce yourself? Welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself, and I'll have a couple opening questions, and I'll turn it over to members if they have something else.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Alex Liuzzi. I'm Executive Director of the Professional Educator Licensing and Standards Board. Thank you for bringing us. I also brought 2 of our board members, both who happen to be reading specialist, Dr. Payne, who's also the chair of our teacher preparation subcommittee, and Brian Rappy, who's our board chair.
So, okay, it's Mr. Rappy and
Dr. Payne.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. So I have a question. So my first question, Mr. Luizi, is you're familiar with these statutes, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
And you're also familiar with you also, I would assume, believe that reading, for children to read well by 3rd grade is a fundamental, the key, most important indicator of a child's success in school. Would you agree with that?
Mr. Chair, as a person who did not read until 3rd grade, I absolutely agree with that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Luizi. Excuse me. One moment, please. All right. Members, do you have any questions? Mr. Senator Duckworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. So one of the questions I would have for you are, as Senator Chamberlain alluded to earlier, there seem to be a lot of teachers that have gone through the appropriate requirements to become licensed educators in the state, and for whatever reason, the letters program or aspects of the program seem new to them. So just curious, between now and when the question was posed a week or two ago, has anything come to light that has helped you gain some awareness as to why that might be, or are you still think that's a question better suited to somebody else? If you could just give us your thoughts on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, Senator Duckworth, thank you again for the question. I mean, it obviously is always helpful to have some time to reflect and to think back on it. As we're not the ones talking with the educators and hearing those stories ourselves, at that point, it's hard to find out sort of what their direct experiences are and how much are they grabbing from the letters training and things at that point and when they went through teacher preparation. But here's what we can tell you. The statute is incredible. The Senate, House, Governor has worked really hard to make sure we have a strong statute that has scientifically based reading instruction set into that statute, and that our agency then makes sure that that statute's implemented through teacher prep. We can talk about what that process looks like, how we review the syllabi to make sure that they have all those elements in there. We use reading experts to make sure that those syllabi are reviewed. And then we have a test in our state, an MTLE test. The elementary reading subtest 1 is specific to literacy. And we have a 94% pass rate on that test over the past 5 years. So we even know that teachers coming out of teacher prep are able to answer the questions on a test about scientifically based reading instruction. So, I mean, when we think about, okay, what is the disconnect, right? If they're learning it in teacher prep, we know that it's happening. We know that they're able to answer the questions about it. Where's the gap? And we agree with this committee that it needs to be addressed. We're excited about the letters training of ways to sort of take teachers who have that initial training and help bridge it into implementation, and what does it look like to go from teacher preparation into a districts that might use different reading curriculum, and be able to take that training and actually implement it with their students.
Senator Duckworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for elaborating on that. I would have a follow-up for you, which is this. So last year, I think the legislature appropriated $3 million for additional letters training, and I think this year, or this session, both the House and the Senate are looking at an additional $30 million. So how would we go about making sure that letters training or aspects of it are built into that 4-year training, requirement that folks have to go through to become educators in the state of Minnesota, versus us trying to continue to invest more dollars in this after the fact? Or is there a way that we can get on the front end of this rather than trying to catch up on the back end?
Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, Senator Duckworth, I'm going to do a quick answer that what I have, and then I'm going to pass it to Dr. Payne, who's also a school board chair and so has a good connection with districts. I know the legislature over time has tried multiple different strategies. We've been able to pass, you have been able to pass legislation for teacher preparation, but I think figuring out ways to make that more specific to what exactly needs to happen within teacher preparation and then exactly what needs to happen within districts. I believe it's 120B.03 says that districts can't be told what curriculum they have to use. So if we're sending teachers into districts that aren't using what we know is scientifically based, I think that's a struggle. So that's what I have to say, but if you're okay, I'd like to pass it over to Dr. Payne also.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Senator Coleman, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question for you is, when the letters training opportunity was opened this last year, there were 1,000 applicants, correct, in the first 5 days. But we're hearing from a lot of Minnesota teachers that these programs aren't performing as they should be, that they are reporting that they weren't properly trained. So can you address that a little bit? If these programs are supposed to be performing as they should be, why are we hearing from so many teachers that they aren't properly trained?
Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, Senator Coleman, thank you for the question. Again, I believe this is a disconnect between training and the implementation of that training. So if we have a pass rate that shows that 94% of teachers do get that training, are able to answer the questions about scientifically based reading on the test that we have specifically for that, I think it's once you get into school, even in that student teaching where your mentor teacher might not have that same training, they might have been trained before the times that there were scientifically based reading instruction in their preparation programs, that there's that disconnect at that stage. And so thus, when they're in that classroom, they have that sense of, wait, I no longer know what is the right way to teach reading. I need more professional development. So I think there's ways that we can look at legislation to bridge that gap a little bit more.
Good. So I have a question. Mr. Luizzi, 122A.092 sub 5, paragraphs A and B. A PELSB approved teacher preparation program is required to, a PELSB approved teacher preparation program is required to include in its program research-based test best practices in reading, consistent with the definition of reading in 122A06 sub 4. We're all lost in that, but basically, I'm getting at that language in 122A092, a PELSB-approved teacher preparation program. And then when you go to the other reference statute, it talks about the 5 pieces of science of reading. So this is going to be a hard one, perhaps. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. Are you approving prep programs? Is PELSB and were your predecessors approving these preparation programs?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Luizzi.
We are approving teacher preparation programs, and we believe that we're approving them where they meet this statute. We have, there's sort of multiple steps to the process. There's initial programs that go through the approval process, and we have specific reading experts look at the reading material to make sure that they meet all 5 elements of scientifically based reading instruction. And actually, every program has been re-reviewed in the past 2 years because of the statute changes that added the dyslexia piece. So those are reviewed by reading experts, and including a dyslexia specialist. MDE, as part of statute, also has a dyslexia specialist that we use to help review those. So we do believe that not only, yes, we're approving these preparation programs, but they do meet these standards.
Thank you, Mr. Luizzi. I have one follow-up, then Senator Newman has a question. So, Mr. Luizzi, well then how do you account for all these educators saying they've never seen this, gobbling up the letters training, going back to the classrooms, showing success, and the comment from National Council on Teacher Quality when they say 74% of all teacher prep programs fail to cover all 5 components. So how do you account for the teacher saying, we never seen this, and then to getting letters and the lights go on and everything works for them, and then with this finding here that 74% of the programs don't do all 5. So can you comment on that briefly?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, first of all, to the teachers, again, I believe this is a disconnect between the preparation itself and the implementation. So the letters training is done when teachers are in the classroom, which then makes, of course, that learning a lot more applicable and vital at that moment. So again, I think our reviews and the test scores of teacher preparation candidates when they complete teacher preparation programs shows that they do get that information. But I think it's hard to then, once you're in the classroom, to be able to turn that and implement it. And I think that's why the reading renewal requirement is so important. And we have actually even suggested that Tier 3 candidates have specific renewal requirements that could strengthen some areas around renewal for those first 3 years when you're in the classroom. To your second question about the National Council of Teacher Quality, I can't speak to their methodology. We know that they ask for the syllabi of teacher preparation programs, and I believe MACTE might be able to speak to how they give those syllabi or what they provide. I just know that from PELSB's perspective, we review their entire program and have reading specialists review their curriculum and do not approve someone unless they have scientifically based reading as part of their program.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I just have one more. Thank you, Mr. Luizzi. But I'm a lay person, so I'm asking this, and if let me compare this to, say, teaching is an important job. We all agree to that as well. vitally important. Flying airplanes or doing heart surgeries, well, flying airplanes, right? I mean, shouldn't you, when you come out of those programs, be able to walk in and do that job without kind of guessing whether they do or don't? Obviously, there's some gap here, something missing that we're need correction on. Because to us here, again, the statute is clear that they're supposed to have SOR, demonstrate they have SOR, demonstrate they can do it. And these teachers were supposed to be ready when they walked in the classroom to teach reading. And they clearly were not. So we'll move on. But did you want to comment to that, Mr. Luizzi, and then I'll move on to other senators.
Mr. Chair, I couldn't agree more. It's important that on day one, they're able to do this teaching reading because of how important reading is. Our board has consistently talked about the importance of teacher preparation within licensure, and we believe any way that we can strengthen this to maybe, this legislature also approved a lot of funds for Grow Your Own programs, has done a lot of work in residency, types of teacher preparation programs that connect the preparation to the classroom so that people are learning this information while they're with students. I think there's many ways that we can ensure that they're not just learning it, which I believe is already in place, but that they're learning it in ways that they can implement it on day one.
Thank you, Mr. Luizzi. Senator Newman, you had a question, then Senator Swedinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Luizzi, like the chair, I'm a layman. I'm not a teacher. I've been in a lot of classrooms, but never in the capacity as a teacher. And I've got to say that I'm really confused by what you are testifying to. As the licensing board, on the one hand, you say teachers are in fact prepared when the chair has laid out a bunch of evidence that says they're not prepared. And you are saying that there is a disconnect between the curriculum that the teachers have been taught, and when they get into the classroom, there's a disconnect in being able to implement. And I will tell you very honestly, Mr. Luizzi, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe it's because I'm not a teacher, but I should be able to listen to your answers and understand them, and I'm not. So I guess my basic question is, if you're using all of the right words, it's important, we have to strengthen things, but what concrete suggestions has the board made, for instance, to the legislature to fix the problem? We've got to acknowledge there's a problem here. Boards and agencies throughout state government come to the legislature regularly with what we call agency bills. So what agency bill have you come to the legislature, or have you come to the chair to make suggestions as to how do we fix this particular problem so that laymen like me can understand, what you're saying? Because, it just isn't connecting for me at all. What you're testifying to seems to be completely opposite of what the chair is saying, and yet you're agreeing with him. So what is your board's suggestions to the legislature and to the chair to fix this problem?
Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, Senator Newman, thank you for the question. We believe the statute as it is very strong. So what our board has done, understanding that new teachers only new teachers are the ones that are going to go through those standards, and we train about, I believe, 3,000 teachers per year. So our board actually has gone to the rulemaking authority that was provided in the statute to say that the reading requirement itself for current teachers that are in the classroom need to complete a reading renewal requirement. So we have developed a list of what that reading reading requirement should have. Right now, reading renewal requirements are locally controlled. And so we just wanted to make sure that all the elements of what should happen in that renewal are in place. Right now, it's on our website just as recommended because we haven't completed the rulemaking process. But that is something that we are internally trying to do. We haven't suggested any legislation around this issue because we believe that this is a strong statute of what is currently required for teacher preparation. And we believe we're reviewing that and new teachers will come out. Again, I know there's some difference in the data that we're showing, but our data of the Minnesota candidates show that 94% are passing the test that shows that they understand that reading, the scientifically based reading. Maybe we need other types of assessment pieces. We have an assessment work group that's looking at how should we be assessing teacher preparation candidates more broadly. Maybe that is a different conversation that needs to happen.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Newman.
if I understand your answer, the laws and the statutes and the rules to implement the necessary education for these children so they can learn how to read, they're in place. So the problem is someplace other than with your board. The problem is where? With the teachers or with the colleges that do the preparation? Where does the problem lie? Apparently not with the board. Where's the problem lie?
Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, Senator, I think the problem lies everywhere, including with the board, which is why we were looking at the renewal requirement.
So Mr. Luizzi, if you acknowledge that there is a problem with the board, why doesn't the board come forward with some legislation to try and help, the legislature with guys like me who don't understand it? Why don't you come forward with some suggestions as to how to fix this?
Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, Senator Newman, we'd be happy to look at legislation. At this point, we were looking at changing our own rule to strengthen the reading renewal requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Luizzi. Senator Swedinsky?
There's a lot going on here today, and I'm perplexed, as are many of my colleagues, but I'm perplexed in a different kind of a way, I think. So, as one of two members of the committee that have actually gone through teacher preparation, so colleges are teaching based on statute instruction in reading, correct? We can agree on that?
Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, that is what we believe as we review them to make sure that they are meeting the statutory requirement.
Thank you.
May I just interject something for you? I'll remind the members and Senator Swedinsky that teachers that have just, fairly new graduates from the program after they've gone through the pedagogy and the other training in classroom have said they never received it. And this information was new for the most part. And we have the NCTQ that says 74% of the prep programs haven't done all of it. So just a reminder. I'm sorry, Mr. Senator Swedinsky, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, what percent, you gave a number of teachers passed the SOR science of reading questions on the I want to be a teacher test, whatever it's formally called.
I want to be a teacher test.
Well, I don't mean to, what is it called? Back in the day, we didn't have to take that test, so I know it's a recent, it's been around 20 years, right? 20 years is recent, okay, I don't know. Okay, can I finish with my questions, Mr. Chair? So what you alluded earlier, what percent, it was over 90%, passed the SOR component of the test, correct?
Senator, Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, Senator Swedinsky, yes, it's the MTLE Elementary Content Subtest 1 is focused specifically just on literacy, and the pass rate for the past 5 years is 94%.
Senator Swedinsky?
Okay, one more question. So it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is our teachers are prepared to enter the classroom based on the instruction they received in their university and their passage of the test. So if that's accurate, maybe where we should be putting more of our attention is the art of reading, and that we're missing a very important piece in this puzzle, because it sounds like if the teachers are fluent, if you will, in the science of reading, where would the art of reading, that love and joy component be? Or is that not purview of this committee or PELSB, or is that something that's just innate in our species? That because that to me is as important as the science of reading, is that joy and the art of reading that teachers instill in their students as well as the science. So I hope someday we have a hearing on perhaps the art of reading, and see what teachers, and bring in some teachers and say how they're teaching the art of reading as well as the science of reading, because I would really enjoy that presentation from teachers. So anyways, thank you, and I apologize for not knowing the acronym for I Want to Be a Teacher test, because it's an important part of our what teachers have to go through, and they go through a lot in order to enter the classroom. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Senator Swedinsky. Mr. Luizzi, did you have a comment on that?
Mr. Chair, I could pass over to our two reading specialists on our board that might be able to speak to science of reading, art of reading, joy of reading.
Sure, go ahead. Then we'll go to Senator Rarick. And Senator Duckworth, did you have something to this point? Yeah, let's do that. Senator Duckworth to this point, then we'll go to Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be great, because I think it'll segue into maybe something they were going to have the opportunity to touch on earlier as well. So, Senator Swedzinski, I love the point that you just made, which is if most folks are passing this portion of the test that is required to become a teacher, but then, and again, this isn't being critical, it's just looking at the data, but if we're still seeing our literacy trends going in the wrong direction, then it would lead me to believe that maybe what we're testing folks on, and thereby what they're being taught as a part of their four-year programs to become educators in the state, maybe that's a disconnect. And I think we've alluded to that before. I'll give you an example. I'm a real estate agent, and I had to get my license to become a real estate agent. And what I was tested on to get that license has almost nothing to do with what I do in the day-to-day realm of that profession, right? So I'm not saying that's the case here, but what I am saying is if we have an example of phenomenal training like the LETTERS program that maybe isn't a part of the education that our future teachers are receiving, and maybe they're not even being tested on programs like that when they have to take that test to get their license. That's the real essence of the question, which gets back to what I asked before, and I think you're going to allow her to maybe expound upon this, which is how can we get great programs like the LETTERS program to be a part of that initial training, so that when educators get that four-year degree, they're training on the relevant, meaningful aspects of literacy that they'll be utilizing in the classroom. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Mr. Luizzi, then we'll go to Senator Rarick.
Mr. Chair, Senator, the National Council of Teacher Quality report that was provided actually also highlighted the strength not only of our standards on scientifically based reading, but that test itself. But I agree that we have an EdTPA that evaluates the performance assessment of teachers, and looking at are there other ways to look at performance, not just in if the test isn't really getting at what we need, are there other ways to look at what we need? But again, Mr. Chair, if you'd let me pass over to a board member to speak to how that might move into the classroom, that'd be
So
great.
we'll go to that, and then we'll go to Senator Rarick. Who's going to speak?
Mr. Rappy, I'm Chair of PELSB. I'm also a 6th grade and 7th grade reading specialist, special ed teacher, and ELA teacher.
Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I'm very excited to be here to talk about reading. Just a quick testimony on my part is I couldn't read until I was in 10th grade. And between patients, my parents, and some great teachers, I'm here being very successful now. So I'm glad I didn't fall under that. If you can't read by 3rd grade, you're out of luck. But listening to the discussion, I think one thing that's going on is it could just be a semantic argument that we're having right now. I think with the real estate license also is a good example is I'm guessing teachers may have been taught the five parts of scientific reading, but that terminology may get lost in curriculum. And so they're doing it, they just don't have a name for it, or they forgot the name for it. And so when asked, and again, not seeing the questions that were asked of these teachers, it may be, you know, if asked, could you show us how you're teaching reading? It could have been a different response or a different answer. Oh, yes, I'm doing the phonemic awareness, I'm doing the comprehension. So, you know, I would love to see the questions that were asked to see, you know, how they were phrased, but being in the classroom and seeing our new teachers, I'm seeing this being done with students. You know, and I'm concerned on the decrease, and I'm seeing the decrease in the 6th grade, but there's also, reading is a complex subject, and it's built on scaffolding. So, you know, some kids get it right away. Like me, it took me until high school to get it. And a lot of it has brain development, a lot of it has, you know, what's going on with the student. So what I hear, I think we're all agreeing on the same thing, but semantically, we may be disagreeing on definitions. I hope that answers some of your questions, and if there's any other questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Yeah, just one quick follow-up, Mr. Rappy, and then Senator Rarick. He's sitting here with his vested interest, obviously. But, you know, and I'm not trying to be argumentative,
Yeah.
but if they're, semantics aside, so they don't know it's SOR or whatever, or, you know, keyline pi or whatever it is. If they're teaching it, the kids would be able to read, right? I mean, wouldn't that be the logical end? Whether, no matter what they call it, you know, if they're teaching it, if they knew it and they're teaching it, wouldn't the kids be reading?
So like I said earlier, like I said, I couldn't read until I was in 10th grade. And there's a definite brain development part to that. There's a definite progress. So kids are reading, it's just they're not matching up to the test. They're not getting there. I wouldn't say that they're not able to read. It's just the progress of getting there, finding the time, finding the groups, and finding the teachers to teach them.
Thank you, Mr. Rappy. Senator Rarick, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members, if you're wondering why I'm here, the chair, being I'm the vice chair of higher ed, thought this would be a very good conversation for me to be a part of because of the relationship between higher ed and this subject. And listening to the testimony, and we've started going down some of the initial questions I had from other members, but you know, we're talking about a gap. And originally, I thought when you're saying 94% of applicants taking the test are passing, but then they're also saying we never saw this before. And then, Mr. Rappy, you just made a comment that you don't know what they're getting in college for their training. So what is the process for developing this test and looking at college curriculums when you say we look at their college curriculums and make sure they have to have the science of reading as part of their curriculum? How in-depth are you going to actually see, I mean, just because it says it's on their curriculum, are they actually teaching it? And two, is your test actually getting to the core of it, or is your test lacking in the ability to assess that knowledge?
Who wants it, Ms. Luizzi, Mr. Rappy?
Mr. Chair, I'll actually pass that to Dr. Payne, who's a chair of the Teacher Prep Committee that looks into how programs are evaluated.
Okay, this doctor, please, welcome to the committee. Please state your name and who you're with for the record.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. My name is Dr. Lucy Payne. I work at the University of St. Thomas and also sit on PELSB as a rep for teacher preparation. I do not represent higher ed. I represent all teacher preparation, including our non-higher ed groups who are licensing teachers in our state. When we have programs come forward for renewal or new programs coming forward, we have a process of peer review. So programs are required to submit all of their syllabi. And in the syllabi, it has to be very explicit of where content is taught and where content is assessed. The reading specialists then look at the syllabi and review those materials. They are content experts, and so they know the textbooks and materials that are being used and often highlight things and question and send back syllabi for additional information. Once that has happened, if it's a new program, it goes to another panel of reviewers called the Program Review Committee, who reviews it to make sure that, yes, it does meet standards, or if their standards aren't met, does it need to move forward, or does it need to go back for additional information? After that, it comes to the Teacher Prep Committee, where I sit with 2 other PELSB board members, and we look at the responses from the 2 reviewers in the first phase, the content experts, the PRP, the panel of reviewers of teacher prep providers, and then we make a recommendation to the board. So we have sent and continue to send programs back for additional information because we're not sure if it is fully covered, either in readings or curriculum, or if it's fully assessed. But also, it's a complex process in the fact that it's not a single syllabi. It's not a single course. This information is spread throughout a program, and you have to dig really deeply into that work. And so it's very hard to ask a new teacher, did you have this in your course? Because it might be spread across multiple courses in their preparation program.
Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then, so I guess, can you follow up to then the test that you administer? How is it that that came about, and how can you help us understand if there is such a disconnect, why are 94%? Is it possible the test is not asking the right questions?
Dr. Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The test development happens through a process aligned to standards, and we have classroom teachers come in and work with our contracted test developer, Pearson, to develop the test questions. They are field tested, I believe. I'm looking to Mr. Lutzy for help here, through Pearson. When I was not on the board, when I was working in higher ed prior to coming on the board, I did serve on that panel for the elementary test to review questions to make sure they were aligned. And those groups are groups of Minnesota teachers doing that. So I feel the test is aligned, and there's data to support that from our current testing vendor is Pearson. So I feel there is alignment there.
Thank you, Dr. Payne. Senator Rarick, anything else?
I'll just make one last comment. One, thank you, Mr. Chair, for inviting me to be a part of this. I think both the Higher Education Committee and this committee should be working together to address this disconnect between what people are getting in their training in college and what this test is, how it's evaluating that, and how they're then translating that over to the elementary classroom. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rarick. I have a follow-up in kind of to Dr. Payne and for Mr. Luizzi. Has a program ever been rejected for not meeting the requirements of statute? The 5 components, science or reading. Mr. Luizzi or Dr. Payne, whoever.
Mr. Chair, I can start, and if, as she looks at many of the programs that go through her committee, she might correct me on a few things. As they go through the review process, many programs, specifically once the dyslexia standards were put in place and we re-reviewed the programs over 2 years, there was a lot of programs where the information was sent back to say this is not sufficient. We didn't close down those programs. There was that back and forth to make sure that they put them in place. But then over the course of a few months, all the programs did put in place what they needed to so that they could continue to have those programs. We do every 3 years also review every program and look at their data. And while we have that 94% pass rate, we have had one program that had a lower pass rate, below 70%, and was put on we call it a focus area status, where they had to show us what they were doing to teach reading to make sure that their program did have, again, all of the pieces needed because their test scores were a little bit lower than the average rate that we had. So we do have that review process as well.
I'll have another follow-up to that. So a couple of weeks ago, you might recall if you heard the hearing, maybe not, there were two professors in here, doctors via Zoom, testifying about their college prep programs. Are you familiar with Bethel and Bethany? So what Bethel and Bethany did, and I'm not casting aspersions on them, what their testimony in general, don't quote, you can take the record, but they said they reviewed their stuff, and they saw what was happening. They changed their program so that we're in the process of changing their teacher prep program for reading to make sure that it was aligning with that and that they would get the results. So were Bethany and Bethel part of your approved programs in teacher prep for Minnesota? That's the first question, Ms. Louisi. Were Bethel and Bethany part of approved programs for the state of Minnesota for teacher prep and reading?
Mr. Chair, yes, both programs are approved.
Okay, so they told us a couple of weeks ago here on Zoom that they learned that their stuff wasn't working, so they were changing it. So here we have a problem. You said they were approved programs, but they recognized that they weren't working. You approved those programs, and they self-recognized that they weren't working. So they're changing it. They didn't, now maybe maybe you went to Bethel and Bethany, or someone, and said, hey, this ain't working. And then they decided to change it, but that's not what they said. So can you address that? They changed them, you approved them, or someone before you approved them. How did we get there? Can we account for that, reconcile it, fix it? Mr. Luizzi?
Mr. Chair, through that program approval process, we make sure that they're meeting the standards both in administrative rule and in statute. Of course, every program then would want to reevaluate their program as they see. We visit the program every 6 years, and we look at their individual programs every 3 years. Many programs find their own data in that process and say, you know what we're doing isn't working, and make those improvements. Should we strengthen the review process through PELSB so that we are the ones telling them that? Perhaps, but again, even NCTQ said that our standards are good. So I believe that teacher preparation programs should be looking at their own data and making those improvements as needed.
Well, thank you, Ms. Luizzi. I just have one follow-up, then Senator Duckworth has another question. Maybe it's not a question. Again, I want to find a solution, but I can't help being a little frustrated just a bit. Your organization, or the organization before yours, approved a program that wasn't teaching science of reading. It clearly wasn't, because they said it wasn't, and they had to change it. But somewhere in the teacher licensing board or the new PELSB, somebody approved Bethany and Bethel, and those two schools self-admitted they had to change because they weren't teaching the science of reading. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll give you a closing comment when we're done. So you're going to, wrap up. Then I'll wrap up after you, of course. So that's how it works. But Senator Duckworth, you had a question? Thank you, Mr. Luizzi.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it, and very much appreciate all the information that you've all been sharing with us. My question is more, I guess, related to just trying to understand the process of how we look at what our kids experience in the classroom and how that might impact what the curriculum is at higher institutions when folks are looking to become teachers. So, for example, we know that if somebody has to pass a test in order to become a licensed educator, well, we want the curriculum that they're receiving in college to match whatever it is they need in order to successfully pass that test, right? So my question would be, what's the follow-up in looking at the results of our students, of our kids, and their ability to read, and circling back to look at the curriculum that's being taught in higher institutions, right? Are we closing that gap to say we're looking at how kids are performing in elementary or even higher, and whether it's going up or going down, are we circling back to say how are we using that information to drive what's being taught to our future teachers?
Mr. Luizzi, do you want that one?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to pass that to Dr. Payne, who's uniquely placed as a school board member and in our teacher prep committee.
Okay, Dr. Payne?
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. A couple points I want to make here. We have new unit rule that was just recently passed and implemented that has a stronger connection between K-12 public schools, all schools, and teacher preparation. And so in this new rule, teacher preparation providers are required to have a designated school partner, which they are looking and diving into data exactly as you're speaking to, Senator Duckworth, that would address what you're talking about. It was in place in previous rule, but we've strengthened it because of the same concern that you have around those reading scores and how do we improve that communication between K-12 and teacher preparation. In addition, as a school board member, in preparation for being with you here today, I spent the morning on the phone with my district level MTSS coordinator. MTSS is our K-12 system of multi-tiered system of support for kids. And this is a foundational shift in the way we think about supporting students in our schools that is really taking hold in Minnesota. MDE has the MTSS framework that came out in November. And so I think at times it's the big system, and we're looking at one piece of it right now. We're looking at one piece in teacher preparation, but we need to see how that plays out. And the MTSS work that's being done in schools in terms of supporting our K-12 readers is going to make a big difference, but it's early in that process. So I appreciate all the in-depth questions that help us really dig into the questions and help us work across teacher preparation to K-12 to being accountable to members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Payne. Senator Duckworth, anything else?
If you'll permit, just a quick follow-up, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that answer. It's very, very helpful. Is there any idea as to what the projected time frame is to be getting that information and then being able to then implement it?
Senator, Dr. Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Duckworth, can you clarify what you mean by that information? Do you mean MTSS information, information from the K-12 partnerships with higher ed or with teacher preparation?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Happy to clarify. So you said that there was already something in the works to look at why student scores might be what they are or what they're doing, and then comparing that to what's being taught in teacher prep. That's what I'm looking at, the time frame on that analysis and when it could be implemented.
Dr. Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Duckworth, for the clarification. So the requirement for teacher preparation to work with K-12 schools, as I said, has been in place and it's been strengthened, and that goes into effect 2023, but I know many of my colleagues in teacher preparation have already started to strengthen their partnerships. In fact, my institution, we just met with our K-12 partners recently, and we pull data from our program and share it with them, and then they give us feedback on our programs. So there is that communication now happening more strongly between the K-12 and teacher preparation, and the opportunity for our building level leaders and our teachers in schools to come forward and share with us things that we could do better based upon their experiences.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Payne. Members, anything else? Not seeing it, not seeing anything. Two quick things, I suppose. And to Senator Swedinsky's earlier position about art of reading, enjoyment of reading, would that be safe to say? Because it is the science of reading, and there's a science to how the brain works, as all of us are aware, and how that would be applied. But there is an enjoyment factor to it as well. But they have to read first, I would assume, to be able to enjoy it, and that is a big step. So just that quick thought. There was some mention a little bit ago to Mr. Luizzi and members about the MCA tests, and we all kind of go back and forth about that. Maybe the MCA test should be just down to two things, reading and math. Can you read? Do math. And one gets you to that point, and the other helps you think more clearly, I suppose, logically. And I hated math, but it's very useful in how to think. But we can't just say MCA may not be right or might be a little bit off. We can debate some of those things. But the NAEP also had the same sort of issues. I mean, they came up with the same sort of similar results. That's the first part. So just want to mention art of reading and science. And then to that point about MCAs and AAP, you know, Mississippi and other states are making progress. So what is it that they have done to get ahead? And part of that is just they've implemented the science of reading stuff, and maybe there's something else in there that we can learn from them. So before I keep ranting on, one last question, and then we'll give you time to have some closing comments, and then I'll finish up. And we'll be done early, members. Oh, what do we got? No, we don't. We don't need to. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. After this, well, I'll give you final comment after this question, is that, do you know how many hours about it takes to get SOR, the science of reading, done effectively for a teacher? I don't know, is that for you, Ms. Louisi, or Dr. Payne?
Mr. Chair, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so how many hours? Okay, thank you. With that, we'll bring up MACTE for a few comments if they'd like, but thank you, Mr. Luizzi, thank you, Mr. Rappi, thank you, Dr. Payne. Senator Isaacson, do you have a question for PELSB before they move?
Mr. Chair, we've kind of moved on from it. That's fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much for the time and for sharing. So, Representative from MACTE, did you want to come up quick? Welcome to the committee. I don't know that I have any questions for you specifically, but since you were obviously part of this process, you should have a few minutes to comment on this. My goal, I think our goal here is to find out what that disconnect is and how we fix it, because it's vitally important, as you know. So welcome to the committee. Please state your name and who you're with for the record, and you can proceed. Give you about 5-10 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Laura Mogelson, and I'm here representing the Minnesota Association of Colleges of Teacher Education, or MACTE. And I'm joined by my colleague, Carrie McGuire. She is the current president of MACTE. She'll also be speaking. Also joining us via Zoom is a literacy professor who, if we have time, is going to give some specific examples from their teacher preparation program on the teaching of reading. We at MACTE are supportive of teaching reading systematically and explicitly. This aligns to the standards that we were just talking about that we must meet in our programs. Teaching children to read requires that teachers are knowledgeable and prepared, and that they continue to develop their knowledge. We know that new teachers need to be a part of a school team on curricular and instructional tasks. We know that they need to have high-quality, ongoing professional development, extended practice, and coaching towards effective instruction. So LETRS is an excellent professional development opportunity that we're supportive of. Many literacy teacher educators in MACTE are currently enrolled in the rollout of LETRS training in our state, and we're excited about this opportunity. This type of training allows teachers to add to the reading instruction methodologies from their pre-service preparation to application with their students. So elementary teacher candidates must successfully take courses and complete student teaching that show competency in teaching across the breadth of elementary teaching standards, including the science of reading. So I'm not going to go on about what the standards are, because I believe that we're fully educated now after hearing from PELSB. But my colleague, Dr. McGuire here, has a few words to expand on the process that we go through as teacher preparation providers and offer a perspective on LETRS. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record. You may begin. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Carrie McGuire, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am currently serving as the president of MACTE, which is the Association of Colleges and Universities that prepare teachers. That is a volunteer position. I have a full-time job in the Office of Teacher Education at the University of Minnesota, and my job title there is actually Continuous Improvement Coordinator. I work with all of the programs across the university to see how we're doing and to look and to try to always do better. So we care a lot about preparing teachers that can do what they need to do in schools. I also teach a few courses a year at the university in one of our licensure programs, and for 10 years I was an English language development, used to be called ESL, and German and French teacher. Thanks for inviting us here to answer questions about how licensure programs meet the requirements of the statutes relating to reading. As I suspect you all know, in 2000 there was a national panel on literacy that looked very, very deeply at lots and lots of research. It was about a 400-page report, and they came to the conclusion of what research said with these 5 areas: phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And the findings of that report in those 5 areas were what impacted the definition that is in our current legislation that we're talking about today about scientifically backed reading instruction. So as Laura said, teacher education is standards-based, and the standards come out of rulemaking. PELSB has rulemaking authority. The Board of Teaching had rulemaking authority. And what they do is they take those statutes and they turn them into much more detailed rules. And so our reading standards are very detailed, robust standards that go into what teaching to all 5 of those areas that are the scientifically evidence-based practices that national report identified. They're very well laid out in a very robust set of standards. And we actually have a handout that has those standards, and I don't know if you have it in front of you already, but you will see that they are very robust and have a lot to do with phonics and phonemic awareness and the things that people who talk about the science of reading talk about and the things that are talked about in letters. So we use those standards to create our courses, and the courses go through the review process that PELSB was talking to you about. It's a very robust process. Experts look at the syllabi. We mark on the syllabi where we teach those things. We mark on the syllabi how we assess those things. And if we don't get it right, they send it back to us and we fix it. So it really is a robust process because we want to make sure that we are meeting the statutes and meeting the rules. The dyslexia legislation that was also sort of in the brief for today is a little bit newer. So it was passed in 2019. It went into effect in 2020. So we haven't had time yet to get that into rule, to have it go through rulemaking. But PELSB did send us, as they told you, the legislation. They told us we need to improve what we're doing. We need to heighten our focus on this in our syllabi. We sent them the syllabi. They had external reviewers review it, and the schools that did not have it right had to redo it. So we are meeting what is in that legislation, absolutely. One of the issues might be that the term science of reading, it's a new way of talking about these 5 areas, and that's really started like in 2018. So if you ask a teacher, did you have the science of reading, we weren't calling it that 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So that is new, and letters, the people who did letters use that, so that might be where some of the confusion comes. But I can guarantee you that what is in the statute is being taught in our courses and is being monitored by PELSB. When you look at that long list of standards, you are going to see that there is a lot of overlap with the content of the letters training and with what the science of reading talks about. But I will tell you that the letters training is more advanced than what is in those standards, and it goes into more depth. It's advanced training, and so there probably is some new things in the letter programs that teachers are seeing that they didn't get. There may be some ways that the information's communicated. There may be some way that the information is framed or connected to classroom practices that's new and different and that teachers are finding useful. And like Laura said, we are very excited about the opportunity for teachers and educators in the state to have this really high quality professional development. We have at the University of Minnesota, I think almost every literacy professor is taking letters. We know that there are a lot of literacy professors taking letters. At MACTE, we had MDE come and talk about letters and the opportunity to take letters. So we're excited about it, and we think that there will be things that we can learn that we can take back and improve our programs. So when you're asking why they're saying they aren't learning the science of reading, it might be the terminology. If you're asking why they're saying they're not learning what was in letters, it may be that because it's more advanced. The dyslexia legislation, if you're asking why they aren't learning that, that is new, and that's been about a year that we have heightened those things in our program. So it's probably not surprising that there's some of that going on. I would be very interested to see the survey questions you asked the teachers, the data that you have from the teachers about how the question was posed, how many teachers. That would be really helpful to us. I spend a lot of time looking at data and survey data. We survey our teachers at the end about how they're doing and what we did right, and we try to make changes. So we are part of a system that fails too many kids when it comes to reading. We know that. And we in teacher prep need to take responsibility for being part of this system, and we need to constantly look for ways to improve what we do. And we are so excited that there's support from the legislature for this quality professional development for teachers, and we're excited that that professional development is also being offered to teacher educators. But we're one part of a very complex system that is failing kids. It includes teacher prep and PELSB and teachers and administrators and community and family, and it's subject to all of the very complex forces that cause poverty to continue and is related to poverty. So to say that one part of the system is responsible for what's going on with the teaching scores in schools isn't quite right and is likely not going to help kids.
Doctor, we're going to have to start moving on, but I do have one question, and Senator Swedinsky does. So the children in Mississippi, there's poor kids there, right? Mm-hmm. They're reading better than ours. I don't mean to be flippant, but
yeah, I have looked at that. They had a wonderful systemic approach to increasing their scores, and they have had some wonderful results. But they didn't just teach letters, right? They provided a whole bunch of mentor teachers through their Department of Ed to go out into the schools and to help the teachers after they had the training implement it in their classroom. So they reached out to families.
Doctor, I'm going to just say this, and then we'll move to Senator Swedinsky. You mentioned the National Panel Council on Reading. It's been 22 years. This has been in our statute for 10. We got data from 2013. What else can I say? I don't want to be flippant, but in my closing comments, I'll wrap it up. Again, I'm not trying to be flippant. We had to find solutions, but this doesn't seem to be where we're going with this conversation at this point. Senator Swedinsky, you have a question?
No, I do not, Mr. Chair. I don't know. I must have forgot to lower my hand from earlier, but thank you.
Okay. So, any other questions, members, for MACTE? So I appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate the work you're doing and the effort. I will say first, I do not want to forget and reiterate to thank Bethel and Bethany for having the courage to look at this stuff and begin changing it on their own. And we must do this. I'll let the testimony and the comments stand for themselves. And the science and the data speak for itself. I guess I do have one question, and then I'll finish up. I'm sorry. How many hours does it take to get the SOR, to get an effective SOR? What are the hours that you provide?
Well, I guess it depends on how you're defining that. So the letters program, if
Well,
you're
science or
defining that
reading, because that's how it's defined in statute, science or reading, doctor.
is it science of reading and statute?
We have-
Scientifically based, evidence-based
right.
practice. I believe that most.
Because it really, I use science or reading because it talks about the 5 pillars, right? So it says scientifically based, which is similar, and the 5 components are there. So how many hours do you think that is?
I believe that most schools have at least 3 credit hours, so 3 full courses of 3 or 4 credits based on reading for their elementary and special ed teachers. And at the U, we also have them take a linguistics class.
So so how many hours are we talking?
So that would probably be 600 hours, 600 to 800 hours.
100 hours?
600 to 800 hours
600 to 800 hours in reading, on the science of reading?
on how to teach reading, yes.
600 to 800 hours of how to teach reading? Well, I guess I'd like to see, maybe PELSB at some point can break it out, because if the teachers coming from U of M in the teacher prep course, maybe they're outperforming everybody else. But, and I guess that would be helpful to know, Mr. Luisi, so I won't comment on that further, but if you're getting 600 to 800 hours on how to teach reading, science of reading, then I would imagine that the results from the testing, or some segment of it, right, disaggregated, would show that U of M students are doing much better in the teaching area. So thank you for that. So I'm going to wrap up for sure now. So thank you very much for being here and sharing your thoughts, PELSB and MACTE. Really do appreciate it. And our goal was to kind of drill down and get to some point here of understanding. And again, thank you for Bethel and thank you for Bethany. I hope other colleges and universities in this state and outside the state will take similar steps to evaluate and fix the problem. I am not the expert. I am not casting aspersions, but my goodness. My goodness. You know, a lot of teachers have been put out there. Now, here's why I think that they didn't get it. Because when they did letters, semantics aside, they went back to the classroom, Minnetonka, other places they've done it, and I've talked to teachers. They've had results. They see it. It's tangible and measurable, and they're happy. They see it. So the teachers, something went wrong. Something went really bad in the last 10 years. And these kids lost, the teachers lost out and the kids lost out. So I hope that both MACTE and PELSB and all the other smart people get together and figure out why our kids aren't reading and these programs aren't working. Why aren't they reading, and why aren't the teachers getting what they need? Come back with some. Senator Newman asked earlier, what concrete examples to change this, to know that, so we know that the teachers coming out of the prep programs can walk into a classroom after being licensed to be able to teach their kids to read in elementary ed. The state of Minnesota is now committed to spending $30 million to make sure every teacher in K-5 has letters. Teachers are gobbling it up. So we're making a commitment of $30 million. And the teachers got to commit their time. So our sincere desire is we need some answers. We need to figure out this problem because Mississippi did. Poor kids can learn to read. They can. We know that. So I thank members and MACTE and PELSB again. This is in good faith, but it is frustrating that so much time has passed and we are here. So let's hopefully find a solution, some ideas, some thoughts that we can do to change the rules, change the law, and make it clear that these teachers need to get what they paid for and to know that they have to be able to read, teach kids to read when they get out of school in elementary ed. So with that, thank you again. Let's work on it. Let's not let this continue. With that, we are now adjourned. Thank you.